Everybody on the line right now, you are super duper on time and really early, sir. I commend you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Please do go get yourself a cup of coffee before we start. I'm going to start just slightly after the hour, just to make sure that everybody gets online. But I do want to welcome you, and if you want to, unmute and click open your video just to say hi to any of us, if you happen to know any of us beforehand or each other, please feel free to do so right now, because I'm literally just hanging out, arranging my paper on my table right now. Hi, Renita. Good to see you again. Thank you very much for being online. I'm looking forward to having your opinions with us later on. I had a very good time chatting with you 2 months ago, I think.
Yeah, it is. Are you well?
I'm well. Thank you very much for asking. Looking forward
Hi,
to
Melissa.
Yeah, Melissa is on. Melissa.
Hi, Janita. Thank you so much for coming. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
A little bit fluey, but glad to say that it's not COVID. But now everything is COVID. But I think apparently Omicron is less than this flu strain that's going around. But
just for everyone's interest, Joburg is very cold in South Africa. Don't laugh at us, but it's around 1 degree this morning. So everyone's feeling quite fluey and a little bit upset.
Sorry for ourselves. Yeah. Very sorry for ourselves. It's very cold.
It is cold.
Melissa, doesn't that mean that you should be wearing more clothes than you are right now? I can't believe Johannesburg is that cold.
It is. The winters in Joburg are actually, they've gotten more severe, but I'm based in Durban for now, and we have beautiful sunshine, and it's around 23 degrees. So it's
we don't want to know.
No, you don't want to know.
Last night it actually went down, not last night, the night before it went down to 0 in Joburg. And it's very early as well for it to be that cold. So we're expecting an incredibly cold winter. I'm going to go grab that cup of coffee quickly.
Will do.
Cool. See you now.
So we have 7 minutes, right? And we've got informal discussion. So I have a poll for everybody who is a little bit early, and it's got to do with showing off how we can or cannot use the share button on Teams. I'm going to ask you guys, okay? Is this a good look for presenter mode? That means I look like this and I present like this, which is one mode. Or would you prefer it if I shared and if it looked side by side like this? So I'm here and you can see the slide here. So this is option number 2. Or should I go for a weather girl approach, which looks like this, where I'm actually literally on the thing and I actually like, okay, over here it's rainy and over here it's not rainy. Option number 1, number 2, or number 3?
I like option 2.
I go for option 2. Yeah,
option 2. Alex says option 2. Nada says 2 as well. Melissa? 2 as well. Oh, Jonathan also says option 2. Okay, looks like option 2. Option 2 is how we're gonna go.
I like the weather one as a third. If you I like
it's quite fun, right? I actually had one of the lectures that I was doing, and some of because we needed to invert the computer, we needed to touch the whiteboard. So it was actually like having this and being able to like point to like specific things when you're saying, oh, the graph is going up or the graph is going down. It's actually fun. But yeah, it's very weather girl, so I don't know. Well, thank you everybody for. Sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Marian, I guess the issue is actually your computer processing power is not strong enough. So yeah, it's quite distracting.
Oh, the system, does it lag?
Yeah, it's lagging, and then somehow your arms disappear, So
okay. All right. Now that says 2, and I think that the prevailing wisdom appears to be 2 as well. right, so I will do it as a number 2, since that was an informal audience poll without Kahoot, without Slido, without Pigeonhole, or any of the newfangled things that we're used to. So this is how I will be speaking for a little bit. But before we get there, I want to welcome everybody. Thank you everybody for being here on time. It's 4 p.m. and I see Jeremy, you've joined. Is your video? Oh, your video is working right now. We will give everybody a couple more minutes to join in before we start this discussion. I'm actually really excited and a little bit freaked out by how many people are actually online. And Nada's laughing, Melissa and Nada are laughing at me because I was just thinking that maybe there'd be like 5 people interested in the metaverse, but I guess there are more than there are more than 1 people interested in the metaverse. So thank you very much for signing up and joining in. We will be having a couple of things going on in our webinar, and I'm going to drop in some of the links to the documents that we'll be using. Does this mean that you'll be able to scribble on the documents beforehand? Does this mean that you'll be able to scroll in advance of where I am beforehand? The answer is absolutely yes. I'm one of those people who gets bored quite easily during webinars, so I like to like scroll up and down and figure out where I am in the narrative. I'm going to drop in two documents first. One is a document and the other is a spreadsheet, which we'll be using to discuss in a little bit. So I'm sharing it with you guys so that you can click on it. And if you can't access it, please just, shout out on the chat that you can't access it, and I'll see what I can do. So this is the document, and this is the spreadsheet. So we'll be doing a short little exercise just to ensure that we know what we're doing a little bit later. And let me know in the chat or just unmute and speak out if you can't access the document. Just have a shout out right now. It should be, I've unlocked it completely so you can literally vandalize it if you feel like you want to. But if not, feel okay. Thank you. Thank you, Walter. I hope that I'm getting the correct name because you've got Walter van der Velde there. So I hope that Walter is your first name. Thank you for confirming. I'd be very happy to be getting all of you guys to introduce yourself. If you would like to, we don't have a networking drinks or exchange of name cards, but if you would indeed like people to connect with you, may I invite you to drop in your name, your email into the chat. And if you want people to connect with you, if you want to become a big influencer on LinkedIn, drop in your LinkedIn link as well. And then you can get more followers so that you can become an influencer. I don't know. My Sunday school kids tell me, but please feel free to do so. I do see that people are still streaming in, so we will give it a couple more minutes. And thank you, Surya Diputra. Do you have a shorter name that I can call you by?
Yeah, you can call me Suryadi.
Suryadi? Okay, Suryadi, thank you very much for that. And you're from Korika. Welcome and thank you very much. I see, PK is here. Great to see the Dell energy is still strong. All right. Thank you everybody for being on time. Thank you very much for signing up, and I think a lot of you would have received an email from me this morning, just welcoming you to this dialogue and also pre-warning you that it is indeed a dialogue and not us talking to you, which is why a lot of the functions in the chat are completely enabled. The sharing function is also completely enabled, so you will be able to interact not just with us, but also with each other as we continue on this discussion. I've been pressed by Luca, who is also on the call. Luca is the events and marketing genius that has put this all together. He's told me I have to tell everybody that we are being recorded, because he says, "Man, I need to have marketing material. You have to let me have marketing material." So I was like, okay, sure, we're going to have marketing material. The other thing that we are going to be doing is that we will have one part, maybe in about 2-3 minutes, where we will get everybody to switch on your video camera. So we'll take a photograph of everybody so that we'll have that. And after that, if you want to switch off, you can. But I would encourage you to be switching, leaving your cameras on, so that we will be able to interact a little bit better. So thank you very much for understanding that. As I mentioned, for those of you who have just come in, welcome. Thank you very much for being here. We don't have a networking drinks, but if you would like to network with each other, you can see everybody sort of dropping in your emails. And I think I saw a LinkedIn link earlier. If you want people to connect with you by LinkedIn or just email, feel free to drop in your email so that you guys can network with each other. This is a very COVID-unfriendly way of doing it, because you're dropping it in. There's absolutely zero contact whatsoever. But I hope that this helps to alleviate the slight, I guess, distance we feel. I want to say a particular hello and a welcome to people who are from the UK. I do know that it is the Queen's Jubilee birthday today, and I do know that I think Nada, are there like big celebrations and parades over in the UK right now?
Yes, I think they're about to start in just 2 hours. I'm pretty sure that people are lining up in the streets. So there's going to be a military parade. Some jet planes are going to be flown over Buckingham Palace, and there's just going to be parties everywhere. So I'm going to be celebrating this wonderful dialogue and webinar in the right way, in a non-COVID, in a non-COVID friendly way, but I'll still be out there.
Got it. Well, so thank you very much. I do know that Jeremy will be returning to the UK from Singapore very, very soon. So just missed the Queen's Jubilee, Jeremy, for that. But let's hope that this introduction into the Queen's Jubilee, at least from Nada, will help to alleviate some of that.
She didn't invite me.
She didn't say sorry?
She didn't invite me.
Ah.
You are more than welcome to join me in the parties. I'll be waiting.
All right, we have a lot to cover today, so I want to officially welcome everybody. It's 4:07 in Singapore. I want to officially welcome everybody to this discussion around the metaverse. I've touted this on my own LinkedIn as a therapy session, because I do know a lot of people have challenges whenever we talk about the metaverse. They're all like, "Oh, this is terrible. This is going to be the ruin of society." And yet there are other people who are really excited about it. And one of the things which we at Access Partnership, at least for me, we've been playing around with it. Like, how do you assess the metaverse? What are the on the metaverse? So we thought, okay, we're thinking about these things, and Melissa and some of the other some of my other team members, we put together a metaverse policy lab to start thinking about it, because I think that the shape of the metaverse is one question mark which we have. The other thing is, are there going to be regional, national changes or differences in the way that we're looking at the metaverse from a government perspective, from governments' perspectives, and as well, is there a difference between the private sector, the public sector, and the consumer sector? I mean, are there going to be differences in the way that we look at the same thing? Because we can look at the same metaverse, but we may not be talking about the same thing. So in the first instance, what I will be doing is I'll be presenting to you a proposition for handling the metaverse, how you can think about it, and it's called the Metaversality Index. So if you are ready to go, I will start sharing my screen in option number 2, the side-by-side way of this, and we're going to go straight into it. All right, so this is the document that is inside the chat already. If Nada, if you don't mind, would you mind dropping the link again into the chat for those people who, I mean, the chat is moving very, very quickly. All right. what we will be doing in the first instance for this particular dialogue is that we will be chatting with each other and getting to know each other, which we have already started to do. And how this is going to work is that we are going to be working together on a summary note together. But let me park all of that right now and just go straight into the Metaverse Index. So for those of you who are following on in the document, I am starting from, this is page number 7. All right, so what exactly is the Metaversality Index? Luca, if you have the bandwidth, I would be appreciative if you could, do the whole, what do you call that? Spotlighting of me and what I'm doing right now, so that we can actually see what we're doing, because now I see 2 of Nada, which is a little bit disconcerting. All right. The Metaversality Index, what exactly is the metaverse? We are looking at it. Our definition is that the metaverse is the seamless convergence of our physical and digital lives. It creates a unified virtual community where everyone can work, play, transact, and socialize. I see some hands up. Let me just get through this initial definition, and then I will pause for some questions. So the idea of the metaverse is a seamless convergence. And what exactly is this Metaversality Index? Because we are all creating the metaverse together, the Metaversality Index is a scalable framework that provides you with an idea of what the strength of an metaverse ecosystem could be like. So I will pause here just to see if everybody is connected and is okay. Is everyone doing okay? I've got some hands up. Who has their hand up? Amirali.
Sorry, I wasn't ready. I was just playing around.
Oh, okay, sure. All right. Okay, so the Metaversality Index, this is what we're doing. We're thinking about the different handles of what the metaverse could possibly be like. And the Metaversality Index is the scalable framework that measures the strength of the metaverse ecosystem. Now, there are a lot of people who are talking about the metaverse and saying that, oh, my product is part of the metaverse. My new platform is part of the metaverse. And I think that that's a great way to go about it. But how do we think about it? So we've designed the Metaverse Index, Metaversality Index, as a conceptual framework for discussion. And again, happy to have your comments on it. I've opened up the document so you can actually type on it your comments if you want as we continue on. So what are the
I'm just going to point out that we do not see the document in case that's what you wanted to present.
Yes, I do want to present it, and thank you very much for that. Okay, yes. Can you see it now?
No, not yet. Oh, yes, now we see it. Perfect.
Now you do?
I just wanted to make sure that people could see this beautiful, work of art that we put together. So.
Right, thank you, Nada, for bringing that up. I did not realize that you could not see it. Okay, I'm on page 7 of the document link. If you don't have the document link, one of you can own self retype it and drop it in again, please, because I will be doing this presentation. So what is the metaverse? It's the seamless connection of the physical and digital lives, creating a virtual community experience where we can all do stuff together online. We've defined it here in the bold section. What exactly is this Metaversality Index? Scalable framework that measures the strength of a metaverse ecosystem. And the meat of it is here. What are the attributes comprising the Metaversality Index? We think that it comprises 7 attributes. Number 1, entering and presence. Can you enter and exit a particular universe, so to speak? Secondly, identity, representation, and avatars. Can you be represented accurately and appropriately, or however you want to be in the metaverse? And thirdly, home, travel, and discovery. Can you build your own home? Do you have a home space? Can you travel to another person's space, for example? Can you discover new things in the same way that when you read, travel blogs for, I want to go to the Maldives, for example, is there a discovery? Is there a way that you can find out about things? Is there a way that you can find out that, oh, today, Melissa's going to have a party in her house. I'm going to self-invite myself to a party at her house. Can you discover that? That's the third. Can you see somebody typing onto the document directly? Can you discover things that are happening? Fourth is interoperability and standards. Can things be interoperable? Can they speak to each other? Are you able to chat across different platforms? Is there a way for things to API into each other, for example? So that's the fourth category. The fifth category, I think, is something which we will start with later on when we're talking about data protection, privacy, and safety. How can we make sure that our data is protected? How can we ensure that things are safe in the metaverse? Sixth is virtual and media artifacts, markets and transactions. And this is something which I'm hoping that my friend Dennis will be speaking a little bit about, which is if you are in a zone and you can make things, you are a creator and there is intellectual property in the creation. And the last and the seventh one, please ignore number 8. Somebody else is typing in this. Interactivity and interfaces. What is the level of interactivity, for example, that a mouse gives you versus a haptic vest, for example? So that is the interactivity. Those are the seven attributes. Again, please ignore number 8 because somebody else is typing into the document who is not sanctioned to. But I'm very happy to talk about how to define the next metaverse address. I love that question. We have people in ICANN who probably want to chat with you about that. But let me pause here to do what I promised to do, which is I would like to take a group picture with everybody. So could I just request that everybody just switch on your cameras, make sure that it's there. And then Luca, would you mind controlling this because or telling us what we need to do so that I can make sure that you get what you need in terms of video recording?
Yes, absolutely. If you could switch on your cameras and I will be taking a picture.
All right, he'll be the one saying 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
So.
everyone smile, look happy about the metaverse. And thank you.
Do we only need one photo, Luca? Because
I
usually
think I'll stop you halfway through and get another one if that's okay.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. All right, so I'm going to go back into the metaverse and actually, since I have all of you online right now already and you're looking, at least I guess you're looking at me, any questions in the first instance? Or any contributions other than people typing into the document already? Thank you very much for the comments.
Yeah, just a quick question, if that's okay.
Who's this? Who's this speaking? I'm sorry. Could you introduce yourself and at least where you're coming from?
Joel de Messon, I'm the chairman of Equanet. Yeah, short introduction. I'm based in the UK. Hi.
Thank you. Happy Queen's Jubilee to you.
Yes, thank you very much. So just a question. So of course the index is a way of creating something that allows to compare, as you said, I think, apples and pears, right? Something that really allows to be able across the board to have, if you want, a framework, a metrics through which you can say, here is how this project compares to that one and the rest of it. And it makes sense there. I think therefore I was saying that question number 8, point number 8 is more of a procedural point than a sort of index point. My question is, all of those elements are, if you want, very sort of quantitative. I take it that you are staying away from the qualitative element, as in the experience of the person, because right? Okay.
Yes, you are absolutely right. That is a fantastic question, and that's why I actually have another spreadsheet that we will play with so that you can see and you can feedback to me whether my quantitative analysis is going to be correct or not. I will qualify that, like what I've written down, the Multiversality Index is not a way in which we can compare apples and oranges. You can't say, for example, that my mouse is more metaverse centric than your platform because you're literally comparing two things that don't make sense. So the question is therefore, what exactly does my Metaversality Index do? I've got some scoring, and if you are if you're on the pages, I'm on page number 9 already, and that's where you'll see a whole bunch of Pokemon pictures. And I want to explain this Pokemon picture thing to you because it is the better way in which I can explain to you. For those of you who play Pokemon cards, okay, for people who play Pokemon cards, you have character cards. So think about the Metaverse Index in the sense of product. So for example, I gave you the example of a haptic vest. Think of the haptic vest as one of the cards. Pokemon cards have character cards, they have trainer cards, and you can upskill your Pokemon with different cards. So you don't just play one card, you play a bunch of different cards. The way to think about the Metaversality Index is that if you score, for example, a particular product really, it doesn't score very highly in the total of like 240 points, for example. It scores maybe 10 only. But it may not necessarily be played as a card by itself. Maybe you play, for example, you play an Xbox together with another card, which is a haptic vest. And together, that's your ecosystem score for the Metaversality Index. The Metaversality Index is for you to stack up your different products to see, hey, how good is that particular ecosystem in terms of how interconnected it is, how well it is integrated, etc. So I've got a couple of pictures here which show you, I guess, again, the Pokemon cards, and the concept is that you can have, for example, in this picture, you can have Charizard, who is 120 points, and you can add the gym trainer, which will give you some more points, for example. So that's the idea of how you can be using this. I do see some hands up. John, do you want to unmute and unveil yourself and ask your question?
Well, I won't unveil myself, but I simply added a point to chat, which is that, and it may not be a part of the index, but I think adding connectivity, bandwidth, low latency, which is fundamental to the achievement of this so-called metaverse, is important. And I'm reminded about that because this was exactly the theme this morning of a webinar run by the Asia Pacific Telecommunity. And I think I forwarded the slides, or some of them, to Luca. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I do take that point. I would really like to create a metaverse index for governments. For me, I personally feel that that's a Web 3.0 discussion, and that's definitely in the works for now. But thank you very much. Any other comments or questions about this? Because I will spend the next 4 minutes literally blitzing through this other document, which will give you the overview of the Metaversality Index scoring. And this will answer Joelle's question about, is it actually going to be a quantitative one or not? So I was going to get everybody, I'm sorry, it's already 4:20 in Singapore time already. I was hoping to be nearly done by now, but I think that this took a little bit of time to set up. I was going to get all of you to write your name on the left side and pick a product. And then we'd be going in and talking about some of the quantitative analysis here. And we're going to ask, for example, entering and presence, which is the first characteristic of the Metaversality Index. We're going to get you to score your product. So for example, I've got on the left side, I put my name, I put Pokemon Go. And for example, can I enter into Pokemon Go and be present? If it's a yes, then it gets a score of 10. And if it's not, then you give it a sort of, you can give it a score of 5. And if it's a no, you give it a score of 0. So I'll be really happy for you to be putting in your name. I'm going to give everybody maybe 20 seconds to go into the Google document and the spreadsheet here and pick a product and put your name in. And as we go through, you can always try to score your product as we move along. This is more for you to get just a hands-on experience and exploration of the index rather than to actually like hardcore score it. So please do put your name in and just pick a product. For example, some of the products that we shortlisted could be something like, for example, Roblox or Minecraft or Bitcoin or Ethereum or Tinder or Tinder coins or World of Warcraft coins or Oculus, for example. So feel free to put it in. And I hope that you're familiar enough with it. And as you do that, I'll go through, thank you, Alex, for participating. As we go through that, let me just go through the Metaversality Index scoring system then. Okay, so entering and presence, which is the first attribute. We think that being able to enter into a digital platform to see and be seen is pretty important. Question, can you enter and be present? 10 for yes, sort of, 5 no, or not applicable. So for example, you can't enter into a Bitcoin. You can't enter into a haptic suit, for example. That would be a non-applicable, so that's a 0. Can you move around in the world and be located spatially? And this is related to somebody else's comment above about what are the location identifiers? What is the new URL, for example, for the metaverse? It's a really good question, but this is a question: can you move around the world and be located spatially? Secondly, can you be properly identified and represented in the metaverse? Must you have a unique username? This is very related to safety and security. For example, in Korea, you are absolutely required to have a real name, a linkage to any of the online platforms. In many other countries, you don't actually need to do that verifiability. So can you have a unique username ID in the first instance? So this is nothing to do with like linking to the identity, but can you have a unique single username ID, or can you almost misrepresent somebody else by having the same username? Can you be pictorially represented as for example, an avatar in 2D or walking around in 3D? So yes, if your avatar is 3D, it's fully customizable, able to identify my skin color, my gender, my hair, my disabilities, and other characteristics. And then we have the range from 10 to 0 down. Are you able to interact with other users? Yes, with full haptic contact, video, sound, and text, etc. And no, and all the way down to 0, you're not able to interact with other users in that metaverse or in that product. Third, home and discovery. So you can see you can actually start scoring as you go down. Oh, thank you very much, Amarati, Kai-Chen, and Remy, and Alex for walking along with me all of this. Home, travel, and discovery. Can you customize your own space, your homepage, or your garden? Yes, sort of, no. Can you customize other spaces? For example, can you vandalize a wall? Can you write on a whiteboard, etc.? Yes, sort of, no. Can you hold an event? Yes, sort of, no. Are there methods for finding things or other places to go to, things to do? Yes or no. This has got to do with the actual platform being self-regulating and self-sustaining. Is there a search function or a news reel within the zone? Or no, you have to self-discover or read articles outside of that universe. You have to go online to the World Wide Web to search for something to do in that world. Can you move anywhere instantaneously in world? Yes, no, sort of, no. Interoperability and standards, and this is super duper important because this is going to be really the power of the metaverse. Can it interconnect with other people? Can you step out and go into other worlds? Yes, no, sort of. Can you step into, and this one is the one that's going to be a little bit controversial. Out of 5 selected worlds, and this is very qualitative on our side, can you step into and score 2 for each world that you could step possibly into? And I suspect that people might have some questions about this particular scoring. Interoperable standards. Have the developers in the world publicly declared that they are focused on using interoperable standards, or have they just not mentioned anything about it and they're just saying we're just doing our own thing, we're programming by ourselves? Console and channel availability. Is this product, can it be used with the following consoles? We've identified the core ones: Steam, Microsoft Store, Epic Games Store, PlayStation, Xbox, Mac App Store, Google Play Store, Nintendo Switch, and I'm very sure I'm not familiar with all of the other channels. Please let me know if I've missed out anyone. I do not know whether I want to include channels like itch.io and other platforms which distribute games. Happy again to hear your comments. In hardware interoperability, can you use the product with any of these, or any and all of these products? Score 2 per hardware. Data protection, privacy, and security. Are you allowed to use aliases and pseudonyms? Are there digital identity verifiable credentials? That's a mouthful, but I think that this is important for people who are wanting to make sure that you are who you say you are, and not just that, but secure transactions strongly. Do you know where your digital identity is being stored? Who is it stored by and how? Are there safeguards in place to ensure user security? Are users informed when they're engaging AI? I know that this is a really big important part of the AI standards and ethics discussion, so we put it in there. Are users informed when their data is being shared with other companies? Are there clear consent mechanisms? Are there clear roles and responsibilities? For those of you who are familiar with the GDPR and all of the other data privacy and protection regulations, you'll be very familiar with these questions, I'm sure. Virtual artifacts, markets, and transactions. Are there or is this a transactable virtual media artifact or digital good or currency? Which means that, for example, if I create a shirt, for example, in Roblox, can I trade it? Can I change my shirt with you or not? Or is this a Bitcoin, for example? Is it a transactable medium? Can I pass you 1 Bitcoin? Can you pass me 1 Bitcoin? So yes, yes, and no with variable factors involved there. Creators and creator tools, are there unique virtual tools to be created in world? Are there virtual media artifacts transactable in the world that they were created? That means can you score? Okay, sorry, can you transact in the world? Can you transact outside of the world? I remember when early on in the early 2000s, Linden Labs created Second Life, and Second Life had Linden dollars in the space, and there was actually a real world exchange rate between dollars and Linden dollars. And I think that there was also, my brother used to play World of Warcraft. There used to be also a going rate. I don't know whether it's still in existence, but a World of Warcraft gold to dollars exchange rate. Can it be used to transact in the real world? Digital marketplace, is there a marketplace? Can you buy and sell things like NFTs right now? There are lots of digital marketplaces for that. Is there a digital marketplace, for example, for Linden dollars or for your shirt that you created in Roblox? Are there marketplaces outside of the original world to transact your items? And lastly, interactivity and interfaces. This one is fairly straightforward. Essentially, input and output devices. If for the input devices, can the system accept these inputs? Sight input, touch input, auditory input, taste input, smell input. Can it accept these inputs? And can it output these signals? Sight, can it output haptic response? Can it output auditory output? Can it output taste? For some, I don't know if there are any devices right now that can put in taste, and smell output. So this is essentially the Metaversality Index, which again, if you want to score items, you can simply put in the score. And again, I want to emphasize that it's Pokemon cards. It is not meant to be a single document a single scoring that will basically say this one product is better than the other, but rather for you to start collecting different types of devices, putting them in your ecosystem and saying, hey, this is good and this is not. I'm going to pause here to see if there are any comments before I turn the time over to Melissa to talk about the next bit and pieces of what exactly is the metaverse. And also, I'm just double checking to see whether my friend Lionel Chok is online. Lionel, are you here? No, okay. Well, happy to take questions and comments right now. I'm going to stop my sharing and we can have a little bit of a discussion right now. Walter.
Yeah, just a note on the fifth one. I missed something on whether you leave traces in these worlds or not, and who would be able to access those traces, what they could do with it, whether they are anonymized and things like that. So is it an in-out and you leave no traces, or is there some history that you build up which can be good or bad? I mean, that's just an issue I think might be important and is linked to privacy and security, of course.
Yeah, are you thinking about things like cookies, and is that a...
It could be that, yeah, but it could be pretty sophisticated logging of everything you do. I mean.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's
Yeah.
no, because
so I
if you're
think you,
talking about
as a user, you would need to
logging,
be aware whether or not these things happen, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good thing. Are there fingerprints and are there breadcrumbs, I think, that you leave behind or are being tracked?
Yeah.
Thanks, Walter, for that. That's I see Nada taking notes. Thanks, Nada. Crispian.
Hi, just to check, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I think on the point 5.5, there was one in which do you want to know when the person you're talking to is like kind of governed by AI or something to that extent? Would like to also suggest that the scoring also reflects, depending on the next point, whether the person you're speaking to has a false identity, means that might send alarm bells.
Can you give an example of like how that might happen? So if I know that I'm engaging with an AI, then if the answer is yes, is it, are you linking those two questions?
Yeah, okay. So I'm expanding that questions because you're saying
Okay,
that I'm expanding the question scope to also incorporate a scoring such that when the person that you're speaking to, because he or she can choose his or her avatar, and that avatar is up to him or her to choose the color and whether he wants to reflect what he or she is physically in real life. But what if that your counterpart choose to reflect an alternative avatar? Would you want to know? And then that scoring should reflect that. Just to highlight that. Thanks.
right. Thanks, Crispin. So it's sort of like, I think that this goes back to, I think definitely the safety and security concerns. Are we talking to real people in the first instance, and how true is that person that we're talking to? Is it really that person, or are we talking to a deep fake? Thanks, Crispin, for that. Any other comments or questions? All right, no questions and comments. I do see a lot of people typing into the document itself your comments. Thank you very much. We will take that into advisement, and we will definitely email you once this thing is finalized and published fully. I did promise quite a lot of you that this would be a metaverse therapy session. So I'm going to turn the time to Melissa right now, because Melissa is going to chat with us a little bit about the privacy and discussions. Well, I think that it's the top liner notes about what are your concerns in your context, whether or not you're part of the government or whether you're part of the private sector or whether you're speaking just as a consumer. What are your concerns about the metaverse? So Melissa, I'm going to hand the time over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayan. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Melissa. I'm based out of Johannesburg, but now currently in Durban, South Africa. And I lead client relations, and I'm one of the members there at Access Partnership. So to start with, I think as we immerse ourselves in the metaverse operators will collect our facial expressions, our biometric data, our hand gestures, even our retinas and how they respond to other avatars and behaviors. In a survey done last year, and I think Mayan was alluding to this, people were asked what are their concerns around the metaverse, and they said, yes, of course, identity, how do we verify identity and who we're speaking to? But other concerns were also around surveillance, which I think has been mentioned here, and also data. How will data be used and how will it be collected? And many of the respondents of the survey spoke of this as a deterrent in terms of them being concerned about this, and this would perhaps hold them back from fully immersing themselves in the metaverse. In this session, I think we want to have a discussion about what are the privacy and security concerns, what are some of the solutions, and if we could influence what metaverse operators do, how would we go about doing that? So it's kind of an open forum and discussion to hear ideas. I guess the first question is, and the concern, and do you agree with me or not, is, will data be collected, yes or no? What type of data will be collected? And will operators be explicit about this collection? Any answers from anyone in terms of what they're concerned about, or what do you think a solution potentially could be?
I don't want to hog the conversation I spoke earlier, but until somebody else steps in, I'm happy to talk a little bit. This comes to, I think, my contribution, I guess, comes to one thing that I wanted to say at the end of the earlier session that we just had, which is that I thought that an index could be one that really looks at whether the representation of the individual is very much real life like or completely artificial. Because then that actually also helps cognitively knowing if the space is really representing people as close to themselves. Because today with AI, you can pretty much mimic me talking using simply my image sitting on the internet. So we know we have the technology to actually get to the point where the experience in the metaverse can really be a true representation of the person's physical attributes. We can do that. So there is a choice there, of course, for the platform operators and also the technology they use to determine whether they want their avatars to be that as close to the real life or not. So I was thinking whether that's an index that we could maybe look at in terms of the metaversality. But it connects into what we're talking about here now. Because when you make that choice, then of course, automatically gets you to the point of to what extent do you use the technology to really look at the macro expression? That's what we're talking about here. It's talking about, how I'm reacting, my emotions and all those things. We know we use those things even in the space of customer service to detect whether a customer is anxious, worried, and the rest of it just through voice analysis. So we have the technology to be able to do all of those things today. I think it's very much a fundamental question of, do we want to transpose that technology looking at all the existing use cases that don't worry us anyway, sometimes happen under the bonnet, we don't know it's happening, and bring it to the surface and say, this platform is going to be using this technology which taps into these attributes, gives us information on up to your emotional state, right? Or the nature of your interaction. So my answer to that question is my point of view of that on that is that until government is in the position to regulate and say, look, you have got to disclose wherever we are. And I think we have blocks today. European Union can do that. They can pass a law that will say that if you're creating a platform in Europe, you've got to have a list of what you're doing and put a standard there. The Europe can do that very quickly. America as a block is big enough to pass, a law like that says that if it's operating in the United States, it has to do that. So I guess government will have to step in, but people voluntarily, platform operators voluntarily can do that. They can list that for people to be able to know, and perhaps also go as far as actually putting switches on so that somebody can say no, right? I want my avatar to be lifelike or not lifelike, or actually don't collect my data on, which means I may lose on some attributes, but fine, I know it will restrict my experience. But I think it's a choice. But just sort of before I shut up, it goes similar to what we're talking about today with mobile phone operators using voice analysis to know what you are talking about in your family, simply because you've opted into Alexa and pushing adverts to you. So the technology companies are the ones that are going to make a decision how they want to use those. That's very long that nobody reads, but you've actually signed to it.
Yeah, thank you, Joel. I appreciate that. And I agree with some of the options. So yes, there's the government can regulate and perhaps come up with some standards around transparency. And there's already, quite a lot of privacy legislation which potentially could be updated. Or a second alternative then would be for self-regulation, for the industry to say, here are our standards around data and privacy, and be more upfront about it. And I guess a kind of third option there is also, I think as users of this technology, we also have some power to say, we don't want our data to be used in a certain way. And to your point, yes, I want to limit my interface or my interactions based on what you're collecting. And I'm okay with that because I want to be a little bit more aware about what is being shared. And if I don't like it, I'm not going to share it. So completely agree. I wonder if we could perhaps open it up to the forum as well. And if Janita, if you had a particular view of what would be the way to address it, or any concerns around security and data within the metaverse.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. Let me turn my camera on, then I'm not an invisible person. I think, this is an extension of what we're already used to with, concerns around social media. We've already had this around, some of the other social media platforms. But this is really, I think, for us, like one shot to get it right this time. A lot of historical policies have been adopted in retrospect, only after people have been abused and after there's been, I think technology has got a great use, and it's important, and we can use the metaverse for a lot of good. But we know that there's going to be cybercrime, and we know that we have to protect people. And I see one of our colleagues in the chat says that maybe some people would like to have less regulated, environments. And for me, that potentially could be the the start of the metaverse mafia, where people are really using the metaverse for trading in places and doing things that, we should be concerned about as humanity, because, unfortunately, it happens every day. And the metaverse is going to be a platform where we know there's going to be potentially a lot of financial transactions. And if we just look at how, who watched Tinder Swindler, and if we just already are aware of how people are taken advantage of. And the problem with this and with technology is that it's aimed at the most vulnerable component of humanity, and that's our brains. Humans are curious by nature, and they're going to want to participate, in the next generation of the internet. They are going to want to experience it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that take advantage of that, especially if people are not educated. So although I'm not pro heavy regulation, I also think that we've got a responsibility to sort of save people from themselves. Because we know people do really silly things, on the internet and on social media platforms. But finding that balance, and for me, it's always this, like, how do we not stifle growth and technological adoption, but how do we balance that with the rights of mainly possibly young children and people that are less educated about, technological platforms. So those are some of the concerns for me. And then, of course, we know that, financially people are taken, advantage of. And I think, like you said, there's a lot of policies in place. There's a lot of things that we can extend right now, and that we can use. And for me, the metaverse and in fact, all technology is an expansion of high-speed broadband networks. It comes out of what we've already got in place: networks, nodes, data centers, some of these other technologies that are already in place. And how do we extend that? I think what's going to count in our favor is the fact that people are going to opt, like our colleague said, for the safest platforms. And you're going to have one shot to get it right. If you mess it up, people are also, educating themselves. They're learning fast. They know which platforms they can trust, and they're going to levitate towards those platforms. And, and we're going to have very early on, we're going to have severe or very clear winners and losers in this race. And I think I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to hug the conversation.
Thank you, Janita. That was great insight. And yes, I think let's avoid a situation where we have a metaverse swindler. I see there's a hand. Please feel free to address us.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks very much, Melissa. My name is Alexandra. I work at FTI Consulting here in Brussels. Just want to say thanks so much for putting together this index and really interesting discussion on the metaverse. It's cool to be able to hear everyone's thoughts on this. I have a question that is basically about how we could establish what the safest platforms are, and how we could really expect them to provide content moderation tools that would protect consumers, especially vulnerable users. And my question is, one of the main differences that I see between the sort of metaverse space and the way that the internet works today is that we're moving from a primarily text-based environment to one that will have these embodied interactions based on speech. So I'm wondering if any of you have any insights as to how we could actually expect platforms to, or these new sort of metaverse worlds, to moderate speech interactions between individuals without sort of really infringing on sort of fundamental rights, or doing any kind of sort of generalized monitoring of the entire ecosystems, like verbal interactions. Thanks very much for your insights.
Thanks, Alexandra. That's a really heavy question, and I think that I see Ranita has dropped in a useful comment. Potentially develop a code of conduct for platform owners. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not quite sure whether that's going to work because you're going to have to find a way of implementing it. I do see that Lionel has joined us, and I do know that Dennis is also online to talk to Nada. So Lionel, what do you think in terms of a code of platform for the metaverse? What do you think for Hata Land? Is that something? Lionel, by the way, is the Chief Metaverse Officer, which is a new title. I've not seen it before. Chief Metaverse Officer for Hata Land. So in response to Alexandra's question about content moderation and protection of users, what's your take on that?
Yeah. Hi everyone. So sorry I joined late. I think this is a brand new ground. What is digitally, I guess, invisible is very hard to enforce, especially when it comes to things like avatars. And so like even Facebook, as you will know, only implemented, the safety area between avatars very late in the game. So I think at the moment to implement something when we are moving into an era of decentralization is almost like saying we want everybody to be free, but then, here are all the rules. So it's quite a hard question to tackle. So what usually happens is that we try to produce relevant UIs that guides the users into the particular metaverse, for example, your platform. And these UIs could be very, very easy hints like, having a bot. So for example, I think the most famous example that everybody might experience in Decentraland is that as you get in the Genesis Plaza, you have a flying robot that comes up with text. So they give you a lot of different hints about what to do and things like that. So whether you call it primitive or traditional, I guess it by no means serve its current purpose. This messaging will start to introduce you to what will be so-called the norms of code of conduct in this particular place. And this method is often used in a lot of other areas whereby if you just spawn into the openings of Genesis Plaza or the open world, these are the first information that you're going to be receiving. There is, I guess, a taken for granted, familiarity is that if anybody can get so far as you create your avatar, come into this space, then you might be of a certain pedigree of, learning, experience, and probably education and awareness. So you're likely to follow these things that the bots tell you. On the flip side, you've seen things like VR chat, which many of you might be familiar. You put on a headset, you launch the application, and there's no host bar. So if you go to the forums, that particular platform has got the most harassment, the most complaints and things like that. But it's also this particular area where there's most host bar that a lot of users like it. So I really think that there's really very broad spectrums of different platforms with very broad spectrums of governance, if I may use that word very loosely, that people like or don't like how you're being introduced to the platform. And I guess right now, like the early days of app UI, for example, you had to find a way for what works, what doesn't work, and then it evolves along the way to something that's more mature.
Thanks for that, Lionel. So you've heard it. It's going to be a little bit difficult, a little bit tricky, and definitely enforceability is going to be a huge challenge for all of us. Nada, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to just usurp your position, just trying to make sure that we are respectful of everybody's time. We do have 8 minutes, and I do want to respect the fact that I've got Dennis here from SCOGA to chat with us a little bit and share his thoughts on getting ready for the future of the metaverse. Dennis has been doing a lot of work in educating as well as training up the younger generation to be prepared for everything that's got to do with the metaverse and game in specifically for gaming. And maybe Dennis, we can get your thoughts on some of the ideas that and the work that you've been doing in Singapore and in the region.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Hi everyone. Thank you, Megan, for the question. So maybe I'll just share a little bit of background, right, before I go into the question as well. So I currently work at the Singapore Cybersports and Online Gaming Association, or SCOGA for short. So we've been around for slightly over 15 years now. Our areas of focus are youth talent development as well as jobs and careers, obviously within gaming and esports space. Now, I think the metaverse has been a very hot topic in the recent years. However, I think if you ask any seasoned gamer, right, and we do work with quite a lot of gamers, the concept of the metaverse has been around for more than 20 years now, and it's always existed in video games, right? These are worlds that were designed for, of course, the sole purpose of entertainment and interactivity, and of course with different objectives, right, depending on the video game you play. So, for example, right, a game like a very old game like Pac-Man or Tetris, right? In the new age, right, there are multiplayer versions where you could actually play Tetris with hundreds of people together. So yes, one could argue that's the Tetris-verse, right? I mean, if you want to put it in that context. But there are many other games out there that were designed, right, to have a lot of interactivity. And these are mainly what we call massive multiplayer online games. RPGs were mainly the inspiration for these game titles. So if you watch movies as well, like Ready Player One, I think these are all heavily inspired by video game culture. And what I think we personally feel as an association and an organization is, in order for a lot of these worlds, these metaverses to succeed, one thing right now from our observation is actually not really been looked at a lot. It's actually how are these things being gamified? How do you get people to actually adopt your platform, your technology, whatever it may be, whether it's a metaverse for maybe car owners or homeowners, right? Or a virtual world that you're trying to create. It is only as effective as it is fun, right? We believe in learning through play as one of our primary concepts in the organization. And if it's not fun, people are not going to learn, right? They're not going to be able to retain information very well. And in fact, it's very forgettable. In fact, that's why you see a lot of I think companies right now are trying to start what they call play to earn games, right? Which in a sense have some linkage to the whole metaverse concept as well. But again, I think these are really just a starting point. There's a lot more room for growth. But a lot of the answers that I think many people seek when it comes to how do you make a metaverse successful, what are the ingredients to success, are already here, right? I think just ask maybe a gamer that you may know, why would they play a video game, right? Why would they spend hours upon hours stuck in that world, right? And if they can answer those questions really well, I think those would really be good guiding points of how do you actually create your own metaverse, right? For whatever it may be that you are doing. So yeah, that's I think my input for today's discussion.
Thanks, Dennis. Thank you so much. Folks, we were supposed to have a little conversation around, jobs and skills and how we can use, the gaming community and certain AR and VR technologies to develop new training techniques, right? And I'll just leave it with one question for everyone and some closing remarks. The value proposition of aligning academic and industry educational outcomes is quite clear, right? It's a given. Consequently, there has been major trends in higher education providers, and a lot of governments are looking to offer industry-focused micro-certifications, credentials, and even providing, massive open online platforms and courses. But one thing that I always think is, what if we leverage something that, it's a concept about intergenerational learning, right? Because we have all of these younger generations online already familiarizing themselves with certain notions that we've tried to contextualize in the Metaversality Index, right? But how are they being looped into how we design online workplaces and metaverses, and how are we, making the immersive learning platforms conducive to a safe and secure and an efficient metaverse in the future? And I'll just leave it at that. I really wanted to engage everyone around how the audience sees the potential value in reversed intergenerational learning. We can obviously have this conversation in later iterations of this dialogue. But before I do closing remarks. I see Mayan. Did you want to maybe input a comment before we close off?
I wanted to turn the time over to Faith because I know that she's been waiting very faithfully and very patiently. Faith, would you like to ask your question? We have 2 more minutes.
Thank you very much. Well, hi everyone. This is actually Faith from Nigeria. Everyone thinks I'm a girl, but here I am. I'm a guy. So I've been very curious about the metaverse, and I see that everyone here seems to be very, have a very versatile knowledge on the metaverse. I seem to be the only novice here, but here's why I got curious. I see the metaverse as the next Bitcoin, and I want to get a slice of it. Am I right by saying I see it as the next Bitcoin or something? Am I right? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I think that
Maybe it's a tricky question. Maybe I can interject. Faith, so maybe I will counter propose. You will see the metaverse as a new experience. So we are now zooming on a flat screen via video, and I can't reach out and pat you on the shoulder as much as I like to. But in the metaverse, you can, because with spatial interactivity at the moment via our avatars, because we haven't got technology that have caught up yet. Our avatars can pat you, and I can high five, and I can fist bump. So the proxy for what we do in the 3D space is the current way of communicating beyond a flat screen, which we are still sadly typing on a text and doing video calls, which is so flat, right? But it is the most efficient and most familiar method now. But we're moving towards a trajectory of everything being spatial. If technology wasn't a consideration, all of us are in a room, holographically or whatever it is, and we can reach out and interact and fist bump easily, Iron Man style, if I may use that term. So that's where the holy grail of the journey at the end of the rainbow is, and not really a Bitcoin, which is one part of the transaction that will come into space, because in that ideal situation where everything is decentralized and we don't have our data with tech giants per se, Bitcoin represents the method whereby nobody owns your personal properties.
Okay, here's the thing though. I didn't really mean that it's the next Bitcoin. What I meant was I see it as the next big opportunity.
Sure,
and
of course.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it business-wise. So I'm thinking why I got curious is I want to jump on it before it gets too big for me to be able to jump on it. So how do I do that? I want to invest. What do I do? Where do I start?
Well, I think that's something all the tech giants are trying to do, and that's why they're investing quite a lot. My 2 cents worth would be look at how Web 1 transitioned to Web 2, and even Facebook missed the boat, because Facebook missed the boat for mobile, for example, for social media, and many people didn't realize they were in a transition from Web 1 to Web 2 when you can upload content onto the web, because previously it was just passive, right? So I would say invest time to surround yourself with talks, read, watch, go to events, talk to people. I think that's the best ways to bring up the knowledge. Then find your role which will match your background and your experience, and you're in. Yeah, I think those are some of the ways that you being here in the call is really step 1.
Yeah, so thank you very much for all of this discussion. I do again want to be really mindful of your time. I really appreciate the 1 hour that you've spent just doing this Think Sprint with us. I do think that there is always value in coming back and revisiting a particular topic after some time. I was obviously too ambitious with what I wanted to do with this session. We are really, as somebody, I think Alex was we're just scratching the surface. So I would like to invite you to come back to our Metaverse Policy Labs. It is a lab because we are thinking about things, and obviously everything is still in flux. Lots of questions and different people in different stages of exploring the metaverse. So please explore with us. think with us, talk with us. We're very happy to be chatting about these ideas because we're still shaping, all of us are still shaping it. Finally, do switch on your cameras. We're going to take a last picture so that Luca doesn't, kick me in the butt next time I see him. We're going to take a quick group picture, and I'm going to say a very good evening. Thank you very much for participating in this discussion with us. Luca, please do your
folks,
art direction for us.
We have launched our Metaverse Policy Lab platform and profile, so please make sure to follow us, even on LinkedIn. We'll be posting the outcomes of this dialogue and future dialogues, and obviously sharing invitations for upcoming events. So we really do look forward to seeing you in our next encounters. So picture time.
Yeah, guys, I've been taking pictures throughout the session, but I've got 6 people up here now, so I'll just take the picture now, and we'll be sharing everything. And like Nada said, don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn on the Metaverse Policy Lab to stay up to date with everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the time, and we will be emailing you after this all of the documents, and I know some people weren't able to access it, but we will get it all to you. Looking forward to having further conversations with all of you. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.